There's no evidence, according to the DOJ and the FBI, and again, that's public. There's no evidence that any of those third parties were having girls trafficked to them. And that is not evidence that was made clear, certainly, to the DOJ or the...
Oh, dude, Ben's sources told him, I urge you to cease your investigation. After all, Ben Shapiro's sources have told him there's nothing to see here. That's awesome.
Emails drop, and Jeffrey Epstein, who worked on behalf...
Oh, let's hear about how this is the most Jewish style of crime that's ever been invented. Like, I assume that's what Candace's angle is going to be, right? It's all Jewish. The island was Jewish. It was a Jewish island.
Half of the Rothschilds, according to him, he wrote that in an email, the Rothschilds who credit themselves with having created which nation state? Oh, right, Israel, the same nation state that is having a bunch of women say that they were ritualistically abused in a forest by rabbis. That's happening in the Knesset right now, that nation state, saying that they were 3, 4.
One of the things that makes it extra difficult when parsing through Candace Owens' commentary is that, as we've always joked about and talked about quite a bit, that like there is a lot of stuff that goes on in Israel that has the makings of a perfect anti-Semitic conspiracy theory. So like what she's bringing up here is not, I mean, that's a real article from Haaretz. Now, the problem is there's pedophiles in every religion. Okay, it's not exclusive to Judaism. Candace Owens, however, will take this thing and tie it back to, you know, Israel's non-extradition policy and ease of access for, you know, other people who have engaged in pedophilia. And then we'll create this narrative that, you know, all Jews are like this. This is yet another instance of fundamentalism. Fundies of all various shapes and sizes engage in like this. Now, of course, it's additionally ironic that Candace Owens is saying this because she's Catholic. And it's not like the Catholic Church isn't known for pedophilia as well.
He's saying, those are my bosses, the Rothschilds. And here is a brief, but by no means an extensive coverage video that was put together by, I assume this guy must be Goy, right? Goy? Is he Goy? TikToker, Contrarian put this together. Take a listen.
Israel is mentioned twice as much as Donald Trump in the new documents. Here he is discussing with Roger Schank, a Jewish-American academic and hedge fund worker, saying Jews create vast fortunes by manipulating markets and creating financial speculation and exploiting labor. He says, let the Goyim deal in the real world. In a discussion with the Rothschild family, Epstein says if they overthrew the Ukrainian government, there would be great opportunities. The Rothschild family paid Epstein $25 million for certain algorithms. While talking to Peggy Seigel, August 7th of 2010, she asks if an event is going to be 100% Jewish. He says, no, they'll have Goyim in abundance. But don't worry, they're just brilliant wasps from JP Morgan.
Did he just key search Goyim? And Goy, is that what happened here? Where it's like, yeah, guys, Jeffrey Epstein is a Jewish supremacist. Big surprise. He's also an ultra-Zionist. He's also an international sex trafficker of minors who worked for the Mossad and the CIA. Allegedly, the last two parts. I mean, we have a lot of evidence for that at this point. I mean, half of the that they're talking about directly corresponds to that, including but not limited to opportunities in Ukraine, whether it be talking about ISIS and Daesh, whether it be talking about the attempts of Israel and UAE alongside Saudi Arabia when they wanted to invade Qatar. Like all of the conversations that he's having as an asset of both the American state and the Israeli state. He's not having those conversations as a Jew. Lock the in. This is what's so frustrating about this analysis. And I'm not doing this to, I don't know, engage in Jewish exceptionalism or anything like that. It's just outright unproductive, okay? Because any moment that you spend on Jeffrey Epstein being Jewish, by the way, he's Jewish. Have you noticed he's Jewish? He's a Jewish supremacist. It's like, yeah, I have noticed that. I know. And so was Itamar Ben-Gvir, for example. But I don't give a about that beyond the fact that that ideology is running amok in the nation state of Israel. And that ideology is the underpinning of why Israel engages in ethnic cleansing campaigns against the Palestinian population. I care about Zionism as an ideology more than I care about like the entire Jewry that is responsible for the nation state of Israel. These guys don't. And we found out exactly what happens when they don't care about the Israel angle and do care more so about the Jewish angle. You end up actually saying things like, like, well, Jeffrey Epstein is kind of cool, except for the fact that he was doing all the cool things like international sex trafficking of minors, but Jewishly doing it, okay?
Epstein's my boy, dude. Let's just be honest. Epstein was cool as there, I said it.
That's not the problem, dumbass. It wouldn't be appropriate if Jeffrey Epstein was, I don't know, Jeffrey McGurk, Jonathan McGurk, whole ass Christian doing it. It would still be fucked up. Anyway.
Joshua Finkelstein, BlackRock's Larry Finkelstein's son, is accused of not having any respect for non-Jews, seeing them as not human. This is from his ex-girlfriend, Svetlana. He pressures her to have an abortion. In 2017, Epstein has a conversation talking about if you want to hire the best people, you have to hire only Jews. Only hire those who can prove they are genetically Jewish. Maria Farmer, one of the first victims to come out and name Epstein.
I wasn't allowed to go get food. And when I called Ghislaine and asked why I couldn't eat there, she said, it's a Jewish country club. You're not Jewish. They're not going to serve you. They, honest to God, think their DNA is better than everybody else's.
Said that their operation was motivated by Jewish supremacy.
Anybody gonna say that that's not real anymore?
She went out there and claimed there were tens of thousands of hours of tape. There are, by the way, but they are. The reason the FBI claimed there were tens of thousands of hours of tape for parties on Epstein Island. That is not what the tapes are. I also have sources in the federal government who are covering this stuff and have seen the documents. Okay, those tapes are just child porn. That's all. That's what they are. That's why the FBI is not releasing them. Okay, as far as the Epstein list, what I have been told by my sources is that there is no Epstein list, that basically there's a black book of Jeffrey Epstein contacts. And the vast majority of those contacts are already out there publicly. That's why you know names like Prince Andrew or Alan Dershowitz or some of the names that have been mentioned here. Those contacts, there is no evidence, according to the DOJ and the FBI, and again, that's public. There's no evidence that any of those third parties were having girls trafficked to them. And that is not evidence that was made clear, certainly, to the DOJ or the...
Oh, dude, Ben's sources told him, I urge you to cease your investigation. After all, Ben Shapiro's sources have told him there's nothing to see here. That's awesome.
The former Israeli prime minister said, quote, as a former Israeli prime minister with...
Oh, dude, Ben. Naftali Bennett said so. Damn, dude, you make such a compelling case. My sources in the Mossad told me that Jeffrey Epstein certainly wasn't a part of it. And that's not an exaggeration. He's literally pulling up Naftali Bennett's tweet being like, as a former Israeli prime minister with the Mossad having reported directly to me, I will say to you with 100% certainty, the accusation that Jeffrey Epstein somehow worked for Israel or the Mossad running a blackmail ring is categorically and totally false. Case closed, I guess. Why didn't I think of that? Obviously, who could doubt the infallible self-investigating institution of Israel?
The Mossad having reported directly to me, I say to you with 100% certainty, the accusation that Jeffrey Epstein somehow worked for Israel or the Mossad running a blackmail ring is categorically and totally false. This accusation is a lie being peddled by prominent online personalities such as Tucker Carlson, pretending they know things they don't. And in fact, I followed up with the former Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, and what he told me is the Mossad has not been active in the United States or against the United States since the Jonathan Pollard scandal of 1987, when a U.S. Army contractor who's actually working for the Navy revealed classified information to the Israeli government. He was prosecuted by the United States government and ended up in prison.
I'm gonna be honest, if I'm Ben Shapiro, I'm never bringing up Jonathan Pollard. In the off chance that someone actually learns about Jonathan Pollard from him, they are going to be way more anti-Semitic. Okay? If I'm a guy who's like, I really love Ben Shapiro because of all of his advocacy against Guatemalan migrants and stuff, but I'm a little iffy on this Israel. But, I respect him. He's Jewish. Maybe that's the reason. Let me hear him out. And then they accidentally find out about Jonathan Pollard from Ben Shapiro, they're never turning back. They're going to be like, oh my God, Jews do control the country. Like, this is a foregone conclusion at this point. I was so deluded and so wrong. If I'm Ben Shapiro, I'm never bringing up Jonathan Pollard. Because Jonathan Pollard's story is so insane. It's also pretty funny. Like, Trump did that. Trump literally gave Sheldon Adelson Jonathan Pollard, who then flew him to Israel, and they gave him a standing ovation when he actually arrived at Israel. It's the biggest flex of all time. Who's Jonathan Pollard? Here, Ben Shapiro explained it.
Totally false. This accusation is a lie being peddled by prominent online personalities such as Tucker Carlson, pretending they know things they don't. And in fact, I followed up with the former Prime Minister, Naftali Bennett, And what he told me is that Mossad has not been active in the United States or against the United States since the Jonathan Pollard scandal of 1987, when a U.S. Army contractor who's actually working for the Navy revealed classified information to the Israeli.
Jonathan Pollard is so funny because he'll go on Israeli television and be like, every Jew obviously only cares about Israel. He is literally the dual loyalty trope in action. Like, he's the guy that takes the trope from an anti-Semitic conspiracy and turns it into like reality for Jonathan Pollard. American-born Israeli former intelligence analyst who was jailed for spying for Israel. Pollard, in 1984, sold numerous state secrets, including the National Security Agency's 10-volume manual on how the U.S. gathers its signal intelligence, and disclosed the names of thousands of people who had cooperated with the U.S. intelligence agencies. He was apprehended in 1985, and in subsequent proceedings agreed to a plea deal, pleaded guilty to spying for and providing top-secret classified information to Israel. Pollard admitted to shopping his services successfully in some cases to other countries, and in 1987 he was sentenced to life in prison for violations of the Espionage Act. So they didn't actually kill him, which was surprising. Well, I guess it's not surprising because, he was doing it for Israel. But what's actually crazy is Jonathan Pollard was brought up in the so-called peace process over and over and over again by the Israelis. Like, they were very open about it. They were like, you have to release Jonathan Pollard. And Bill Clinton was like, I can't do that. The do you mean release Jonathan Pollard? And remember, this is like basically a decade ago when Jonathan Pollard is caught. Jonathan Pollard got the Israeli government to acknowledge at least some of the wrongdoing and issued a formal apology to the United States in 1987. But they did not admit to paying him until 1998. Over the course of his imprisonment, Israeli officials, U.S. Israeli activist groups, and some American politicians continually lobbied for a reduction or commutation for his sentence. Why the were American politicians demanding a commutation of the sentence of a spy that sold state secrets to the nation state of Israel? Once again, American politicians and numerous American Israeli advocacy groups kept demanding it. They even said, in defense of his actions, Pollard actually said the American intelligence establishment had collectively endangered Israel's security by withholding crucial information. He had to do it to protect Israel. Now, of course, many American leaders opposed clemency for Pollard. Retired U.S. officials Donald Rumsfeld, Dick Cheney, former CIA Director George Tenet, several former U.S. Secretaries of Defense, a bipartisan group of U.S. congressional leaders, members of the U.S. intelligence community. They maintained that the damage to the U.S. national security due to Pollard's espionage was much more severe, wide-ranging, and enduring than acknowledged publicly. There's that side of the story as well. Jonathan Pollard, I think, lucked out by not selling it to Pakistan and selling it to Israel instead. Perhaps because he had better connections, or perhaps because that's the reason why he gets to now breathe the free man's air, in spite of doing unlimited damage to the American espionage capabilities, the American Defense Department. But the story doesn't end there, okay? Because there's so much pressure coming from Israel, right? For years and years, they never give up on it. They even bring it up in the so-called peace process to Bill Clinton and onwards from that point on. They're like, no, you have to release Jonathan Pollard. That's one of our reasons, which, by the way, once again, another testament to how little they give a about the Palestinians, that they were leveraging America. They were like, hey, we'll allow Palestinians to live if you give us our spy. Lucky for Jonathan Pollard, of course, Donald Trump was coming into action. Now, Pollard was released from prison on November 20th, 2025 in accordance with federal guidelines at the time of his sentencing. On November 20th, 2020, his parole expired and all restrictions were eliminated. On December 30th, 2020, Pollard and his second wife relocated to Israel and settled in Jerusalem. It's really interesting how they don't actually talk about the relocation efforts that took place, because it was Donald Trump that allowed Jonathan Pollard to leave the country and fly to the nation state of Israel. Donald Trump's primary benefactor, Sheldon Adelson, also known as Jabba the Hutt, rest in peace, sent a private jet, his own personal private jet, to fly Jonathan Pollard to the nation state of Israel after his release, and he was given a standing ovation by the state of Israel. Here's Jank talking about the Epstein files. Look at these admissions that the U.S. government officials were secretly working for Sheldon Adelson, who only cares about the Israeli interests, and flew traitor Jonathan Pollard back to Israel on his private jet. And they joked about how Israel controls the U.S. government. Hell of a December 2018 exchange here between Bannon and Epstein. Epstein says he's getting John Bolton on board with the idea that Qatar is the linchpin in the Middle East, and Bannon says while he got Bolton his NSA job, he will not cross Sheldon Adelson. Key is NBC. Get him them get actionable deal, which they did, by the way. MBZ is Dubai, is the UAE. Now Jonathan Pollard spends all of his days in the beautiful nation state of Israel talking about how all Jews around the world only care about Israel. Doing his very best to make everyone feel a certain type of way about their Jewish neighbors to the best of his ability. He is a one-stop anti-Semitism conference. And by that, I don't mean an anti-Semitism awareness conference. He's making everybody aware of being anti-Semitic. It's not even a joke. He recently, amidst the ongoing genocide, came out and straight up went on television and was like, well, first of all, we should genocide. We should do the Holocaust of the Palestinians.
And the only way that's going to take place is if we have a Jewish Gaza, 100% Jewish Gaza.
And then also said every Jew cares about Israel. Like, do not trust any Jews in your neighborhoods because they care first and foremost about the beautiful nation state of Israel.
Jonathan, some feel that today the consensus in Israel is not with you on this issue.
No, I actually feel that the consensus would support a return to Gaza as completely as we can. I think a lot of the polls have been mistaken and they've been poorly worded. I've seen better polls and they all indicate that a complete return to Gaza that's been cleared of its current Islamo-fascist population would probably be an acceptable solution as far as most Israelis are concerned.